For the pledge. Tom, can you lead us in the pledge, sir?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces, our first responders, our veterans, those fighting the good fight in Ukraine, and those suffering from the military conflict in the Middle East, and for community leader John Cristalli, who passed away. Thank you. And we're going to do the American Creed.
The American's Creed by William Tyler Page. I believe in the United States of America as the government of the people,
by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed, a democracy and a republic, a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity, for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and defend it against all enemies. Thank you. Paul, do we have anybody for public comment?
Mike Sinello, 111 Willow Springs. So I fully sympathize with those who have raised complaints about short-term rentals that sparked this entire conversation around a potential short-term rental ordinance. Several years ago, my brother and I lived in the family house that we grew up in. It was one of those 30 to 35 house, never occupied, entirely single-family residential neighborhoods where everyone had been living there for 30 plus years and where everyone knew everyone on a first-name basis. When one of the owners decided to rent out their house to what can best be described as absolutely degenerate tenants, the situation became an unbearable headache, as these degenerate tenants brought a larceny-driven crime wave with their degeneracy that the neighborhood had never seen, and the owner didn't get the message until what felt like the 50th 3 a.m. visit from the police. So my sympathy is not in vain, nor is it disingenuous. With that said, I'm still not very keen on telling people what to do with their private property. You bought the land. You bought the house. Who am I to tell you what to do with your property? To that effect, was my experience the result of a landlord who was too lax in her letting? Or was it the result of the mere fact that it was a rental? I wonder how many rentals are within spitting distance of this building in which aren't having the cops called on their tenants felonies 3 days a week. And I wonder how many houses on the lake in this post-COVID era are only occupied because of the technologies that have allowed the owners to convert their homes to short-term rentals for at least part of the year. I'd venture to guess there are hundreds of these short-term rentals throughout New Milford. Ignoring the obvious tax windfall from having residents that effectively pay a tax bill but don't have, for example, their kids enrolled in New Milford public schools, how many of those homes would be abandoned if not for these technologies? We have several firemen in the room right now. I'm sure they can tell you just how much more of a fire hazard and risk an unoccupied building is compared to one that is occupied, even if only via short-term rentals. We could get even more granular and nitpick the language of the potential ordinance. If we're calling a short-term rental a 7-day rental, why define it at 7 days? Why not 6? Why not 8? There are 168 hours in 7 days. Why not 167 hours? Why not 169 hours? If it's because there are other towns using 7 days, why are they using 7 days? If all of this is somehow pegged to a statute of some sort, why did the writers of that statute pick 7 days? The thing is, we don't have to get to that level of granularity, though we can. I know some people either in the room or watching it at home, or both, cringe at the sight of me speaking publicly in the town I live in. That's all the more reason for you to not want me to tell you what to do with your property. And that's what this boils down to. If the handful of complaints out of what are probably thousands of annual short-term rental agreements are the basis for an ordinance, I would suggest the issue is not the short-term rentals themselves, and I'd suggest the use of force is quite clearly not the solution. Speaking of which, I come with solutions. One big one is in your pockets right now. Pull out your phone, take a video recording of clowns being clowns, post the video on the New Milford, Connecticut Facebook page for its 25,000 members to see. Tell folks this is what's happening at this house at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday. Tell them the property is owned by whoever. Tag their profile. Tell folks they're renting the house at, let's say, Airbnb.com, and link the listing. If you can muster even a handful of one-star reviews in short succession as a result of that share, I promise you, the way those websites work, this house will never get rented again. Shame is a good thing when applied where it's due, and it's a much more favorable option when the imposition of force is its counterpart. Please oppose any further consideration toward a short-term rental ordinance. Thank you.
Sorry, never done this before. We live at,
Can you just give your name and address, please? Your name.
full name, Alexeli Lopez Zayas. We live at 125 Grove Street. We have lived at this residency for 21 years with no problems with anyone before. When we first purchased this residency, the land around it was horrible. The trees and shrubbery around it was overgrown. Everything was cut and cleaned by my father. Every weekend, my father tends to the lawn. He cuts the grass, the shrubs. The only thing he leaves out is the land outside of the fence. During the last meeting that was held here that he knew about, that was held by Skype, my father ended up cutting down our flower tree because everyone had complained about it. He did that very night. All of a sudden now the cars are a problem. He's unsure what to do. He's wondering, where are we supposed to park our cars? We are not the first family that lives here. Therefore, we are not the first family with cars. He is wondering, why are we concentrating on the grass and the cars at our house when the commuters on Grove Street drive between 40 to 50 miles an hour, even more. My father has to help my mother get out of our own driveway because the drivers on that street drive like lunatics. We have petitioned before for either a speed hump or a stoplight to be put in on that road, but there's still nothing. People are not stopping at Fordyce Road at all at that stop sign, and it's causing major accidents. We have seen bodies on that road, and yet we're concerned about our grass and the cars that are parked there. That is all.
Thank you.
Hi, Joanne Stirk, 129 Grove Street, neighbors. We've been here also since 1998, 26 years at the same resident. For the first 23 years of living there, my husband went out every single night to our driveway and turned our cars around so that we were forward-facing out. It was a ritual that took him 15, 20 minutes. We got a break from that during COVID because we could back out of our driveway. Nobody was on Grove Street. They were either home or on Route 7. I don't honestly know. But we were able to do that. Yesterday, I did my tradition of walking downtown to the parade. Thank you for postponing that. It was very lovely. And when I got back across the street from my house, we live on the east side of the street across from the gym, I timed it. And it took me 5 minutes to cross the street because there was so much traffic and no one yielded to a pedestrian. So I'm asking you, when you look at this study, you got to consider everything: pedestrians, cyclists, Residents, commuters, I understand why people come through Grove Street. I would prefer they come through at 30 miles per hour. I would prefer you to consider a 25 mile per hour zone or even 25 or 20. Anything at all that this study puts forward, I encourage you to do it. I encourage you to drive somewhere on Grove Street at speed limit and see who tailgates you as you do so. I also ask you to consider for the pedestrians that are going there, the sidewalk zone ends right at that property that had burned down last year, and you're on the side of the road. And if you put an intersection in there or a stop sign, please look at everything that's given to you from a safety perspective, because those cars are going to speed up through there to avoid a light. It's much safer if you have to put something else there, speed bump or whatever, but they're going to try and jump it just like they do on Route 7 and time the lights. And it's going to make it even more dangerous for pedestrians and cyclists in the area. We have a nice bike path now. I know people come through there. They enjoy coming downtown and enjoying our greatest town in America, right, when they're out. So what else do I have here? If you can be transparent and share this study. I think we found out by just being on Facebook. The mayor had made a comment on one of the traffic reports or the accident reports that there might be a study tonight, and that there might be something being shared with the public. That's why we're here. But it's not apparent in your agenda that this would be discussed if it's being discussed tonight. We don't know acronyms and vendor names, et cetera. So I encourage you when you're writing up the agendas to be transparent. Traffic study, Grove Street, whoever the vendor is, right? We don't know the study name. So that would be appreciative. And I think that's all I have, but my personal choice, if I had to throw something in, is right turn only from the west side of the street and the east side of the street. And I know you'll get a lot of pushback on that, but that is the safest way to do it. Keep the stop signs, right-hand turn out of Anderson, right-hand turn off of Fordyce, right-hand turn off of Hine Hill. And then nobody will be cutting through. They'll be coming down Route 67 like they should be and coming straight onto the street. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Richard Stirk. I am also at 129 Grove Street, and I am also here to address the Grove Street-Fordyce intersection. I'd like to offer for your consideration two short-term, interim, and inexpensive solutions for now to a long-term solution. As stated before, a right turn only from Fordyce to Grove Street, no left turn, and no going straight shooting across into the gym entrance so you can loop around. I myself, from years of experience, will not make a left out of Fordyce. I'm willing to go down. There's 3 other streets that all loop around. You could turn around in less than a minute. Or if I'm going up Fordyce, I'll loop around and come down 67. It's the safest way. We all know the angle of Fordyce, and that's really the hardest part, because the road enters Grove on a bend, so it's already set back. And that's what it is. The road and stop sign are set back almost 30 feet from the actual Grove Street. So the line of sight, you'd have to move all the houses out of the way down the road, and then you hit the big bump by Anderson Avenue, so you can't see anything beyond that. So immediately, just for the cost of a signage, and I don't know what the rules are to change the traffic flow, sign right turn only, and you could come up with, if you think, a better or more permanent solution. Also, please consider, as mentioned before, lowering the speed limit on Grove Street, at least in the residential section, from Bridge Street down to Anderson Avenue, where all the houses are. Once past there, as you go towards the river, it can increase because there's no houses. Has said, a lot of these are old houses. Ours is like 125 years old. They're all single-file driveways, so to get out and get in, you have to make a 90-degree turn, which means you're usually backing up into the other lane. And even just get past the ancient maple tree row on Grove Street to see out, you have to pull out a couple of feet. And I've had cars, instead of stopping or slowing down, will actually drive in the oncoming traffic lane to go around. No one will let you out. The traffic, as we all know, it's the second busiest road to get in and out of town. So you're going to have traffic. The roundabout, which cleared up traffic at one end, sends a continuous flow down where we've had traffic easily goes down to South Avenue and Mill Street. We'll back up to Fordyce Avenue and past my house sometimes. And so you can't, so if you put a light in, one person said on the internet, you're not even going to get out your driveway for all the houses down there. It's hard enough now, as you heard during rush hour. I mean, usually I'll try and park somewhere else, across the street if I know I'm going back out in a few minutes and do it earlier, because you just can't back out. It's very dangerous to want to do it. But consider a right turn only onto Fordyce to Grove. They could go up all they want, but they can't come across. No left turn. And you got to mention, because people will do this, shoot across the street into the gym parking lot and loop around. As for Hind Hill, we've all known many victims of accidents on that road too. I could see long-term solution, a traffic light at that end, because you got enough space in between houses, so forth, and other streets, so it could stop, which would also give a break in the line of traffic between Hind Hill and Bridge Street. Because we all know, starting about 2:30 or 3 o'clock, if you want to make a left from Grove Street to Bridge Street, maybe 1 or 2 cars will get through, then everyone gets impatient. I'm tired of waiting 4 light cycles, so everyone pulls into the intersection, and there's the honking and fingers and everything else. So, right turn only on red, quick, short one for now. You can maybe come up with a longer one. And probably the long term, it would be for Hind Hill as a traffic light. Speed bumps, I understand, but that road is too much of a main road, and the plowing in the winter. I've also worked in Newtown where they have Queen Street, which is a major cut through. And yeah, they put in massive speed bumps in there because they have a daycare center and everything else. And it's actually a very residential road, but people cut through there at miles an hour. Where Grove, it's too busy. It's a main artery, so we get that. And it's a perfect straightaway from about South Avenue to Anderson Avenue. The police were very cooperative about putting up those radar signs. I called and said, could you put that in your rotation? They said, we'll have one up next shift. And you could just clock people. I rarely ever see anyone going 30 through the residential end. I mean, we watch them and we see, 45, 47, 50, bingo. When you get down towards the riverside, people are clocking 60, as we all know, in Hind Hill, another disaster. But those are my suggestions, and thank you very much for allowing us to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. And we have one, Jackie Mason, who wanted to put this into the minutes to the town council. And she just said, submitting my comments for record regarding Fordyce Road, Grove Street discussion. As a resident of Fordyce Road, I do not think a light at the intersection is warranted for the reasons below. I believe a light would hinder the residents' access to driveways, potentially being blocked with standing cars during a red light, both on Grove Street and Hind Hill. If there's a stop traffic, those turning into Fordyce would have a hard time completing the turn, as it's nearly impossible to not cross over into the oncoming lane, both on Grove and then on Fordyce due to the angle of the intersection. Some larger vehicles potentially would not be able to complete the right turn if there's traffic stopped on Fordyce due to the light being red. Even now, without a light, this turn is hard to make. I understand that closing this intersection is not a viable option. It is still my first suggestion. Cheaper solution would be the installation of a right turn only signage. Those needing to turn left can either utilize Hind Hill, which would now be even safer if the signal is installed there, or Route 67 Grove intersection listed a mile away, which already has a light. Seeing as how there's already an intersection with the light, it would make the most sense for residents to utilize that rather than choosing another road to take, then wanting to change it and put in a light. Keeping safety in mind, I support the idea of keeping traffic flow on Grove Street. A light at Hind Hill due to the volume of accidents seems to align with this. However, adding a second light at Fordyce, in my opinion, does not. Okay, Katie?
Okay, item number 4, our consent agenda. I'd like to move items 4A and B for approval.
Second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
We have item 5, which is a report from the Student Advisory Board. I don't see them here.
I don't see them here.
Okay,
So,
well, move on. Maybe they'll be a little late. Item 6, mayor's comments, proclamations.
thank you. So, the first proclamation we have is for summer meals programs. Whereas the summer is the hungriest time of year for many children and families struggle to make up for lost school meals, and food insecurity tends to increase. And whereas 53% of the school-age kids, 30 million in total, in New Milford, 33% qualify for free or reduced lunch meals, but don't get these meals when school is out for summer. Whereas children who are food insecure are more likely to miss school, perform worse academically, experience social and emotional mental health challenges, forego health care, and develop chronic disease. And whereas the National School Lunch Program Seamless Summer Option and Summer Food Service Program, which are funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and administered by state agencies, play a vital role in helping children from low-income and food-insecure households get nutrition they need during the summer months. And whereas traditional summer meals programs have historically only reached 1 in 7 kids who rely on free or reduced lunch meals during the school year. And whereas in 2022, Congress enacted a significant improvements to how we reach kids with food they need during the summer, including a permanent nationwide summer electronic benefit transfer, summer EBT program beginning in the summer of 2024 to provide eligible families with a $40 grocery benefit per child indexed to inflation, and nationwide a non-congregate option for summer meals program rural areas without a traditional congregate sites to allow meals to be taken home or delivered directly to children. And whereas the summer EBT and non-congregate summer meals are proven effective interventions that reduce food insecurity during the summer months, and their implementation is a historic opportunity to reduce summer hunger. And whereas summer EBT, which is available to states nationwide in 2024, complements summer meal programs, providing the $120 per child per summer in grocery buying benefits to families with children who are eligible for free and reduced priced meals, and likewise alleviates food insecurity and improves child nutrition. Whereas summer EBT is protected and reach nearly 20 million children and provide $2.5 billion in grocery benefits implementing in the summer. Whereas summer meal programs are the most effective when paired with educational and enrichment activities, which provide students a fun, safe place to be with friends and stay active, help curb the learning loss experienced during summer months, especially among low-income children, and prepare students to return to school ready to learn and thrive. Whereas my administration is committed to increasing awareness about summer meal programs and summer EBT, helping ensure more kids have access to summer meal sites in New Milford, so no child goes hungry this summer. Now therefore, I, Pete Bass, Mayor of the town of New Milford, do hereby proclaim June, July, and August as summer meals program. That's this one. The next one, I'll talk more about this in mayor comments. Next one is a proclamation, and Jack is here tonight as well, for the National Public Works Week, May 19th through the 23rd. We're at connecting the world through public works. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of people of New Milford, Connecticut. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government, and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is the public's interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children of New Milford to gain knowledge and maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas in the year 2024 marks the 64th anniversary of the National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association and the Canadian Public Works Association, be it now resolved, I, Pete Bass, Mayor of the town of New Milford, to hereby designate the week of May 19th through the 25th as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, manager, employees, to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Thank you, Katie.
Okay. Item number 7, I'd like to move the request, that we approve the request from the Chamber of Commerce for the following road closure. It's for the fireworks celebration Saturday, July 6th. The southern crossover on the green would be closed from 2 p.m. until the fireworks end.
Any discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Item number 8, I'd like to move that we accept the requested permission from our grants compliance specialist that we take a following grant of $5,000, which is offered from First Light Sustains Grant, to purchase a new stair chair as outlined in the grant budget. Funds will be accepted into the account designated by the Director of Finance and/or the Board of Finance.
Any discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? And, abstain? Oh, okay.
You're a no?
I want to make a motion to suspend the rules and add an item to the agenda for discussion on PFAS and the new environmental grant that's possibly out there and available.
So, great question, Mary Jane. I'd ask for you to defer that to next meeting because we have our health director who will be here at the meeting. This was going to be in my mayor's comments to talk about that and other PFAS items.
I don't know, I'd like to talk about it tonight. I mean, is that possible? It's not, you know. There isn't a lot on here. Are you kidding?
Who will be here at our
Amy,
next meeting?
she's our health director for the
Okay,
district.
and and anyone from any DEPs or anybody?
I don't know if DEP or Connecticut Department of Health, who actually is responsible
That's right,
for
right.
compliance, would be there, but I know Amy's gonna be here, and we did talk about that with WestCog, and to get our director's input about this grant, other opportunities, and what the district's been talking to with Connecticut Department of Public Health and DEP, because they're the ones actually having the correspondence with them.
So having Amy here would be a little
Absolutely.
more edifying for us. Well, I mean, we can't really answer any questions, you know, we
Yeah.
can just talk.
Well, all right, so we'll wait till next.
Well, I was going to second Mary Jane's motion to amend for the simple reason that I think this is, even for a few minutes, this needs to be discussed at every meeting until we come up with some plans. But in the meantime, our community needs to know we're on it all the time in a more public way.
Well, I will counter your point quickly, is that the town, the health department is on it, but I think we need to definitely 100% inform the public that they can look at the resources that are on the health district's website, but they can also go to the people that are actually the ones that are responsible for the guidance and the plans for the whole state of Connecticut. And that would be the Connecticut Department of Public Health. That would also be the Department of Environmental Protection. They are both the compliance and the ones that are going to be coming up with funding and opportunities for our residents, both on the community wells and on the private wells. And if you need more information, great news is we have all that on our town website. You can go to www.milford.org, click community, on the left-hand tab is PFAS information. And I think it's very important that the public, which I'm excited that Amy will be here, that will know that they're really their voice and where they need to go to understand those. None of us on this board is a scientist. None of us on this board is an environmental scientist. Nobody on here has the professional wisdom to talk about how we can do that. Our professionals are those that are in our health district, those that are environmental engineers and Department of Environmental Protection. Also, I'm hoping we can get some more information from our federal senators and our federal congresswomen who are all helping us trying to access funds as well. So I think if we all do that in a holistic way, all working together rather than divisively, I think it's to the benefit of our residents.
Actually,
The Department of
that's
Health
what we
is the-
wanted, that's all we wanted.
Absolutely.
That's all we wanted, is for people to have this information.
But the-
It'll be in the minutes, and your reference again to the website.
Absolutely.
It's just, this needs to be a constant. So we just did it, so I'm good.
So
Thank
when
you.
the Department
All
of.
on board to work together.
Absolutely.
Right, of course.
So
Of course.
it's a community
We don't need to
problem.
belabor it.
I'd like to have, one that gets to the point that they are able to know what they're gonna do, is to have someone from the Connecticut Department of Health. I mean, Amy knows what goes, I mean, she's our liaison as the director of our health department. But at some point, when this trickles down to whatever they're going to be able to do for anybody, you know, I'd like to see somebody come and discuss it with whomever was here, you know, the public can come. They're the people that are gonna have to make the decisions, or not make them,
I
or
know,
whatever.
I think that there is that element of anxiety for the families that are on, you know, the
I
Dorwin
agree.
Hill area.
1000%.
you know.
But they can call, they can contact those people now.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
they can.
yeah.
All the numbers are on the, I believe, on the site. If not, I'll double check with Pat.
But
Tomorrow.
isn't it CT, something like that? DH? He
There's an
told
actual
us.
website specifically for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, they have a website, which you could maybe put that
Okay.
on the site.
Randy?
Your Honor, you asked me to check Danbury.
Yes.
There was an allegation made that Danbury's getting money from the federal government, from the state. It's not true. Danbury is getting paid by way of a class action lawsuit that was brought by municipal water suppliers, not by private companies. These are essentially cities that provide water service.
Oh, I see.
A community well is not considered a municipal water service. Doesn't mean there's nothing available, but that's not what's going on in Danbury, so you need to put that aside.
So Randy, I'm so glad you say that. Again, false information.
Well,
It's
Well,
brought to the public.
they got money. They didn't get money from the state
Right.
for private wells.
Right.
They got money through I talked to the attorney for the class, for a class action lawsuit for the municipal service to provide filtration and things of that nature. But it's a water company. It's not the
Correct. In
individual.
other words, Danbury, just so people know, Danbury owns its own water company.
They own a number of them.
Whereas here in New Milford,
yes.
our community wells are
Right.
done by a private company, mostly Aquarian Water.
Exactly.
Right.
That's precise.
So that some people were interjecting at the last meeting that there's funds available for people with private wells, that Danbury was giving out money for that. I think, and you doing your research.
Right. According to the city attorney and according to the attorney handling the class action lawsuit, it was for the city, and a bunch of cities, as a matter of fact, who got funding in order to take care of the PFAS. Doesn't mean there's not money available, but you can't say Danbury got all this money for private citizens. Not true.
Correct.
I mean, you have to understand there's a difference. So I would check with Aquarian to see whether they have anything going, and perhaps that would be the way to go. Well, I would encourage everybody to keep bugging, and I hate to use that word, but keep pestering Department of Health.
Right.
That's what I would do.
So they're the only ones that can really
Right.
answer any questions.
And the
with
feds.
any
And if
authority.
you get the federal representatives involved, that would be.
And we did, as I spoke to the last
Yeah,
time,
and Joanna Hayes you talked to. right, Joanna?
it was Senator Murphy's.
Senator Murphy.
And they said that they were hoping that they were going to get some kind of information they could give to everyone
Right.
as this federal money trickles down into the states, and then the states obviously.
Now, that's
would be
consistent with what I heard
distributed.
from the city attorney's office.
Yeah.
But that funding is not now,
Not
hasn't, yet, right, okay.
Yeah, I just want to say, I don't remember anybody actually saying that they thought, you know, Danbury was going to be covering private wells.
Mary Jane, you can look on the TV,
Maybe.
the
Yeah,
video.
maybe I missed it.
There
I don't-
were some of the residents that did say that they had heard Danbury was.
Well, I think
was
what they
doing
were
that.
referring to was that Danbury was getting a filtration system.
Yes.
A charcoal
That's what they
filtration.
are, but it's
That-
not for it's not individual
No,
homes.
no, I don't think they were talking about individual homes, but they were just saying that Danbury was getting a filtration system to get the PFAS out of the water. I think that was the point.
Out of their public system.
Yeah, right. I think that was the point. I don't think it was people.
Because I asked the
And I,
city attorney.
and I
Yeah.
think, because that's when I'd ask Randy, can you find out to
Right.
see if that's the case?
Yeah, I
When-
remember you
when
saying
some
that, but I don't think
people in the audience
some-
were
Yeah,
doing that.
that was
And
not
then,
my
as we
interpretation.
talked about before, Aquarian being real quick, I don't want to be late, this is going to be on the meeting next time, but Aquarian Water, actually, you can see the results of PFAS results on their website as they break it out by towns. And for community wells, as of right now, right, it's at 4 PPT, right? But on private wells, it's still at 10 PPT.
It's crazy.
Which doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any
I mean,
sense
that's
at all,
just
but-
how it is right now, right? So,
Right, which is
but
kinda
anyway.
scary. So Mayor, could you possibly have on the town website another page or an actual link to list all of the things we just talked about, which would be listing the clickable to get to the website for the Department of Health, to
It's all
get.
on there.
Okay.
It's a hyperlink.
Well, I think that people are not finding it, and if they're not, maybe we put a highlight on the community or on the PFAS words. Just saying is that if people are not finding it, then let's do our best to
Yep.
get it out there. And then when we get somebody with answers,
And, just so we can make sure that the public is informed at every meeting, let's also realize, none of us in this town created PFAS. None of us created PFAS across the country. Okay, I'm just saying, we want to make sure, I know, but if you want to make sure people are informed, you want to touch on this, let's also bring up to the point that nobody in this room, or who sat in this room for the last 100 years, okay, was responsible for it, all right? Just to put that out there, so that everybody understands that we're not, when we talk, maybe people misinterpret that we're going at each other, when really we're just frustrated at the situation, right?
right,
So nobody in this room has ever done anything to create PFAS. And of course, we do not want it in our water, we don't want it anywhere, but it's here, okay? And we can't blame anybody in this room except come together, like we said earlier, we all agree, and work with it, right? Educate people, make sure they know this wasn't somebody that conjured this up in a lab someplace. This is a national problem that we need to address, along with everything else that we've kind of polluted in the
They'll be
last
ready at
150
some point.
years. So,
the
just to
state will
put
be
that out
ready to
there.
come and,
There's a
you know,
motion
whatever.
and a second on the floor if you, which are already
Mary
discussed.
Jane was
You want to
withdrawn.
withdraw
I'll
your,
withdraw your motion and your second.
Okay. Yes.
When you asked me to, when you directed me to get to the bottom of the Danbury situation, one of the things that the water supervisor down there said is that the individual, and this sounds crazy, pestering DPH
Yes, right.
may be the best way to go
Right.
at this point. The individual, because unless the city has a water supply, it's
and
not going to be
that
paid attention.
website is CT, you gave it to us a couple weeks ago, it's very simple. It's ctdh or something, .org. Look it up, don't do that in case that happens to
Okay.
belong to somebody else, but, and they don't know why the heck they're getting all these emails. But I think that once the state is ready, we can have like the auditorium and have people come and
Have a forum on it.
they're the people. As Randy said, who owns our water, Randy?
They're all waters of the state,
Okay,
whether we like it or not. The Soviet
go.
Union's not dead.
all right.
All we
Okay.
want is for people to know
Absolutely.
that we care, that we want to move forward, that we want to solve it, and that things are happening. And that if we want them to stay on it and to do individual, we need, as a group, to keep it right on the front line.
It affects
That's
all
what
of
this is
us.
about.
It's all of our livelihoods. Okay, so that, we all set, Stephanie, on the last one, withdrawn?
Yes.
Okay. Item number 9, I'd like to move that we accept and approve the ordinance for a waiver of assessment penalty.
And
we
this
have-
was done at a public, oh, there's Brian.
Right,
Is there a second?
Do we have a second on the motion? Thank you. Brian?
Yep, for the record, Brian Lastra, New Milford Town Assessor. So we had a public hearing 2 weeks ago on this ordinance waiver of assessment penalty. Had no comments from the public. So again, this ordinance would allow me to waive the assessment penalty for the annual filing of the income and expense report from owners of income-producing property, provided they provide the information to me. So if somebody just accidentally forgets, which happens sometime, they may have a family emergency or whatever, I may not receive the report by the June 1st deadline. So this would allow me to waive the penalty if they submit it to the assessor's office. So it's really kind of a tax-friendly ordinance, if you will.
I'm all for being friendly and helping people out. At the
Right.
same time, if it becomes something that is problematic, for some reason you're seeing a trend that more and more people are delaying or not, or you're having to have the extra work as a result of,
Right.
I think we should talk about it again, because It's not, we shouldn't be doing more than you are doing. There's plenty to do in this town. And I'm concerned that maybe, someone might say, oh, I can wait.
Right. I think, the compliance has always been pretty good, meaning, we receive the income and expense reports by the June 1st deadline. There are some out there that, have just, they'd rather be penalized. I don't know why, but, they'd rather not submit the information.
They pay the penalty then.
They pay the penalty instead.
Because they don't at all.
Right.
They don't submit at all, is what you're
Right,
saying. Okay.
exactly. Yep.
They can't be bothered. So they pay for it.
Right, they pay for it. So what this ordinance will do if they continue to not submit it, then fine. But for the people, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
they forget, they just, and then they get the penalty, then this allows me to waive it.
Any further discussion of the motion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Item,
We did that.
item 8, we already voted on, Bob.
It passed unanimously.
Okay? Bob? Yes, we all voted on it. You wanted to talk about making a motion, and that's the one we... Oh, all right. Right.
Do it again?
This is an easy one, too. Okay, so now we're down to number 10, and I would like to move that we reappoint the following sub-registers of vital statistics in the town clerk's office, and their term is December 1st of 2023 through November 30th of 2027, and that would be for Confessor Rodriguez Jr. and Amy Lynn Cassidy Stevens.
Have a second. Thank you, Paul. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask why we have to reappoint if their term,
Per
the
state statute.
2023?
Per state statute.
Okay.
Item 11 is a report from our finance director. I was just thinking that.
What did he say?
Man.
Dead man walking? Know something I don't?
No, meaning you're bye-bye.
Man.
Okay, this is the April update. The official statement for the upcoming bond sale in July has been forwarded to our financial advisor for review and compilation. The bonds ratings review is scheduled for June 10th, and the bond and note sale is scheduled for June 27th. The auditors have completed their initial field work for the fiscal year 24 audit last week. There are no outstanding issues. They will return sometime in late October or early November to complete the audit. And I'm happy to report that the budget has been approved by referendum on the first try. Expenditures. Expenditures on a cash basis are running at 78% of budget. On a straight line basis, they would be expected to be running at 83%. Salaries are running mostly at the straight line trend as expected, and I see no issues with expenditures at this point in time. Revenues. Revenues on a cash basis are running at 98.2% of budget. Taxes overall are running at 99.9% of budget, with current tax collections at 99.2% of budget. Many revenues are running at or above the straight line average. In conclusion, on a cash basis, expenditures are at $89,143,314.51, and revenues are at $112,640,943.19, leaving a positive cash flow of $23,497,628.68. Questions? Is-
Thank you,
Thank
Greg.
you, Greg.
Appreciate it very much. Next is Public Works. And at our last meeting, we talked about some of the great work we're going to be doing with some of our projects, and they're going to update us on some of those. So we're going to start with the lot zip projects. And Jack, to familiarize again those that may be watching in the audience or here tonight, what is lot zip?
Local transportation projects that you get through the Westcog. One thing before we start,
And
Mary,
those are grant funded.
grant funded through Westcog, yeah. Before we start, did you want to add the Grove Street, because we did come prepared for that too?
Yeah, Grove Street, we were going to do that under the Westcott congestion study, but we can.
Okay,
make
just
it
want to
its
make sure we
own-
had that on here.
Make it its own thing if you would like.
No, just as long as,
Okay.
okay? Lots of projects. We have 3 active lots of projects. Just give me. I'm actually getting older, so I have to write notes now. Lots of projects. The first one is the Pumpkin Hill intersection project. Now, these have been going on for a while, and we're actually to the point of implementation. Originally, this project is funded at $1.8 million. It's to give you a third turning lane, or another turning lane into Pumpkin Hill. It'll straighten out the intersection. As part of this, at one point, DOT asked us to incorporate a improvement on the HRR, the railroad crossing on Still River Drive and Grove Street. The town has, to this point, funded it at $27,000 for engineering. The design is 90% complete. When the railroad asked us to incorporate the design for the railroad crossing, what the state did, they require some engineering. So we had a conversation with the Houstonic Rail about that, and the design work that they were requesting was $40,000. Our position was that since it was an improvement on the railroad should pay for the engineering and provide that.
Everybody stop and watch it. You get it? Thank you, Mike.
Anyway, we had talked to the railroad, and they indicated that they were expecting the town to pay for the engineering.
How much was it?
They estimated at $40,000. It was my opinion that the railroad should pay for their engineering and not the town. The reason being is, in a lots of project, the town is required to fund any design work at 100%. The lots of project will cover the construction cost, depending on how the grant works. They cover the construction, but not the engineering. So it's my opinion that the railroad should cover that. They did not. I have gone back to Westcog and to DOT, telling them that we want to remove the crossing from the project, and we will do the Pumpkin Hill. So I expect that will be worked out very shortly, and we will proceed with that project. The second project, and I'm going to start it, but I'm going to let Chuck jump in at one point. East Elm was a part of the original lot zip application a few years ago, and the town has funded a preliminary engineering study and recently has contracted with Freeman Engineering for about $78,000 to do a study on the East Street and Elm Street intersection. Freeman came back with 3 alternatives. The first one was just to optimize the signal crossing there, just to do something with the lights. The second one was intersection widening, so that you would have a turn lane on Route 202 East Street going north. Also would add a turn lane on Elm Street on both sides, one going east and one going west. So you would have three parts of the intersection there with a turn lane on each one of those. The estimated cost for that is about $368,000, which is close to what we originally had estimated when the project started.
For either one?
No, for the second one.
A second one?
It would include all 3 of those improvements. And then the third option was to do a complete intersection renovation. But that was at $824,000. Right now, our feeling is we would like to go with option number 2. Now, Chuck, did you have something? Did I cover that pretty well, or?
Yeah, no, Jack, thank you. That sums up the gist of what we were trying to do. This project goes back to 2020 when it got first initiated, came to light that there was a little congestion heading in the northbound direction, right? And still there to this day, right? So back in 2020, the application was filled out to WestCog, it was submitted, it was endorsed by WestCog pending some review. What we did this past year is we went back in, had a firm come in and update the traffic signal warrant analysis, the build, the no-go, the go, no-go build situations. And what they end up finding is not only can they include a turn lane in the northbound direction or the eastbound, they can also include the westbound. So that gives us 3 turn lanes with the existing structure of the intersection there now for the most part. The only easement acquisition that would be needed would be to the hospital property, not the hospital itself, but it would be the White House on the opposite corner there. That would require some participation from them. But cost-wise, since the original 2020 proposal went through, that included signal upgrades and various other parts. DOT came through and upgraded the signals already. So now it's just a matter of reprogramming, adjusting what's there, and acquiring minimal amounts of easements there to have the 3 full turn lanes and relieve some congestion in the northbound direction, never mind the other 2 as well. So the third option would involve 4 turn lanes. That would, however, include closing that secondary hospital entrance, that little short piece, acquiring a large amount of right-of-way acquisitions from them on that property, as well as all the way up to Village Crest, because then we'd be forced with renovating that intersection as well on that north side of Poplar Street. So,
John,
Yes.
did you say that it was the 360,000, right? And a small part in front of the house that the hospital owns, the White House? but
Correct.
Wouldn't have to do anything to remove the house? You're
Nope.
just saying, take a little bit of the lawn there and
yeah,
to
right
add-
now there's sidewalk there, there's a fire hydrant there,
Right.
and there's a small parking lot.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, it would reduce the parking lot by 2 spaces along the sidewalk and just kind of push that sidewalk over a little bit, relocate that fire hydrant back a little bit. That gives enough room for a northbound turn lane there.
So nothing on the other side, which is where their mantle and comes down and the flowers?
Correct. It would leave existing conditions everywhere else alone.
So that's pretty good. Yeah.
Tom?
So going northbound at that intersection, I remember years ago when we were talking to Dave Nealons, worked for the power company at the time. And he said that was a big problem, that they didn't want to move that pole. So obviously you got around moving that pole by squeezing over. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
looking at the Google Earth shot. There's plenty of room on that side.
Right.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fire hydrant, that's all.
Yeah,
Oh,
you just
there
have the fire hydrant in it, but they also redid that section of the street, so I thought, that was in
And that'll help
anticipation
with
of this.
that congestion,
That's
So-
the worst spot.
drive time.
Yeah,
Yeah, it would
Absolutely.
move cars faster from the 67 intersection north.
north,
Right, right.
yeah, because that cycle is like 6 lights to
Yeah.
get through it.
And downstairs in the main lobby, there is a rendering of the concept number 2, which is what we're talking about here tonight.
Yeah, be much better
What
there.
would be the time frame for that to happen?
To be discussed, we still have to follow back up with WestCog. I would not expect that to happen before spring at the earliest.
No, I meant like how much time would it take to do it?
Oh, for
Because it's gonna
construction?
bollocks the traffic up while it's being done. Just thinking, like
Am I
not
gonna
high
get-
summer.
Am I gonna see it before I turn 70? We started
No, I'm just
talking
thinking if it was the
about
middle of the summer, that would be.
The actual construction time you're talking?
Yeah, just
Yeah,
rough.
I want to say that's probably a 3 to 4 month, only because we're not talking about new signals. We're talking about some roadway widening. There will be some impact during the process, of course, but, the end result will just give you that much more freedom through that
Exactly.
intersection.
Just curious.
Fire hydrant will be the biggest.
Want to get ready for it.
Good,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, hey.
We want to get it before, I'm 70, Tom.
Yeah,
And I'm closer than you.
yeah, way closer, that's right. That's why I was sarcastic.
The third project is the Wellsville Road project, or Avenue project. WestCog to this point has committed $3.2 million to the project. The town is obligated to up to $1 million for that project. The estimated cost currently is $4.2 million. What that includes is new sidewalks from Housatonic Avenue to the entrance of Aspetuck Village, new retaining walls on the west side of Wellsville, new drainage, new road, which will consider a full-depth reclamation, full-depth mill and pave. We did not opt for the full-depth reclamation because that would raise the road, and if you know the driveway's on the west side, it would become problematic. New driveway aprons. The work would go from Housatonic Avenue out to the intersection of Paper Mill. It would not change the configuration of the intersection of Paper Mill. That's remaining the same at this point. We've already performed some of the drainage work. We've had some issues there. We've already started to do some of the drainage work. New guardrails would be added where necessary. I think you know the section where the power lines go over. That needs to have new guardrails there. We've already WMC is the engineer. We've contracted with them. They've already conducted the survey. They're in the process of doing the design work. We've already performed borings into the road. We know the depth of the asphalt. There may be some minor, we may have to bring in some amount of material to build up the base. We don't expect to be much based on our borings. We've already, if you know the intersection of Pleasant and Wellsville, there's a retaining wall there. The family was concerned about the fence. That retaining wall would remain, so we've already gone in and changed that fence and improved the fence at that location. Did we have anything else?
One thing we've also got ahead of is some work in the drainage on that road. With this project being pushed off a couple of years from what we originally wanted it to happen, there's been some failing drainage issues on there. So if you'll see us talk about during our road construction projects, some drainage improvements, some happened last year, some happened this year. It's basically the pipe that runs from that road through the easements, through the properties, it was failing. It was causing massive washouts and sinkholes within the property. So we went in, we did some repairs. We have one more pending for this year. That money, we can attribute that to whatever our cost share is part of that program. So we will continue to just maintain the roadway and prepare going forward.
One of the reasons for the delay also was at one point we were moving toward this project. If you remember, Aquarian was having a significant number of leaks in the pipes. If you remember, they went in finally and I think they redid almost every cross pipe on that road. We've told them once we do this project, they're not going in and cutting the road up again. So getting a little fussy about that. All right. Okay. The second
Jack, as you're looking for the next sets of projects with maybe Mariel Bridge.
Yeah.
Before that, just real quick for the council and for those that are watching on TV and in the audience, is Aquarian Water, Jack had brought that up, has been doing some major infrastructure work off of Second Hill, off of Violet, Mallet, all up in those areas. And one of the things that we did tell them is once they completed it, they're going to do a mill and pave and go shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
So starting tomorrow, they're going to start that. They've done some milling. They're going to continue with the milling. But then the goal is to have Second Hill paved by tomorrow, correct?
They're
Yeah.
They're working with Jim Gran. They will come in the morning. They will do the milling. In the afternoon, they will do the paving. So Second Hill won't go a day. You know, it's going to be inconvenient tomorrow. Other than that, it will be milled and paved. Tomorrow will be done.
And then they're going to continue to work through those neighborhoods that Aquarian had done their pipings on. So thanks,
And
guys.
I think right after that, they're supposed to come in this week, Mayor. We haven't got a final date on Peegler also.
Perfect.
So that will be done also. You've got that bumpy section over there. All right. The second project, and I didn't write any notes on this, so I'll have to go from memory, is Mariel Bridge. Actually is going along per schedule. We did run into when they started, the original concept was they would cut and pick off the slab in one shot. Just so you'll be glad it's gone. They couldn't do it. It was in such bad condition they couldn't lift it. They had to actually break it down and just take it off in pieces because it didn't have the structure to picked up anymore. So it is gone. They are on schedule. There will be at some point a light installed on West Meeting House because they're going to have to cut into that road to put the abutments in. So it'll be down to one lane. Traffic should go through without any problem, but they'll put a temporary traffic light there. They are going per schedule. They are on costs. They're on cost and everything. So nothing unusual with it yet. We were successfully able to negotiate the bat study. There were no bats there, so we could continue to move that along. But it is moving along per the schedule and meeting all the requirements of Army Corps, our inland wetlands. And they will take the material. There is a concern, not a concern. They will be taking the material as they dig it up on the bridge and taking it to Century Brass. That is the arrangements we have with inland wetlands. There's a bin over there already assigned to them. They will put the material there because we don't want to bring in outside material. So that whatever they take out, they can use back there. That way, it's all native fill. We're not possibly bringing in any non-native invasives. That's the idea behind that. So we've worked that out with wetlands. I think that pretty much covers that one. All right.
And November is the end date.
November's the end date. We're pushing hard to beat that, but that is the end date.
Yep.
Okay. And we would appreciate if people would use Bucks Rock as the cut through. We've posted that. It's for local traffic only. The kids will be coming to use the camp shortly, so I'm putting it out there. We would prefer people not use that road as a cut through. It's a gravel road. We are going to be doing work on that road at some point this summer, but it is a camp there, so we have put signs on each end telling local traffic only.
So you say it one more time? You prefer no one go on Buck Rock Road?
Yeah,
Local traffic only, not a cut-through?
Not a cut through. We've paved all the Bear Hill in that area, and we've also paved Tamarack Road. So coming in the alternate routes have been all paved and we're set up for this project.
So there's other ways to go?
Yep. And we've talked to the fire department's gone out and they've practiced coming in different directions. So the ambulance has. We've done all the homework on that. All right.
To start off on this Westcott congestion study,
Yeah.
can we start off with Grove Street as we have the audience here tonight?
Okay, well,
And
I'll let Chuck get on that.
Chuck?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me back again. Earlier this month, I presented this presentation for you. A couple questions were asked. One was just to confirm the crash data, and two, why does a signalized intersection make everything better? I will edit a couple slides. So Yukon Connecticut Crash Data Repository. This is pretty much what everybody uses to go back for their crash data. It is available to the general public, just keyword Yukon Connecticut Crash Data Repository. This is a summary of 5-year history in New Milford, 2,940 crashes. The roadway in question, a little hard to see for me, but so Grove Street. This is a heat map showing where crashes are located. We have 36 by the Old Grove, 30 by the Fordyce, 10 somewhere in the middle, and 50 near or at the Hind Hill Road intersection. If we focus on just Hind Hill Road right now, we're showing 41. At the intersection, a couple of those nearby can be attributed to factors happening at the intersection as well. Grove Street, Fordyce. 22 on the heat map for here. The same could be attributed to a few of those surrounding it. It all depends on how accurate the data was going in. This is injuries. So injuries of any kind in the last 5 years. 12 directly at the intersection of Hine Hill. And for Fordyce, we have 4. I believe Counselor Cosgrove last week made a call to the PD, and he was questioning the 4 number. And I think what the PD gave him, according to this, was accidents with injuries, not total crash volume. Is it working?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And why do a signal? The main reason is to sign right away. It takes the decision-making process away from the driver. I think you could look at a million studies and spend some time Google searching it, and which is what I did. And it's an error in judgment is what it comes down to. It's somebody thinking they have a gap, someone not paying attention, someone seeing a car behind a car coming. The traffic signal will remove that. It'll assign you a green light, a red light, and that's it. And I'm not saying everybody listens to green lights or red lights or yellow lights, but stop signs are very open-ended, and it leaves a lot of discretion for a driver. So, as a part of the engineering team here, we do recommend to take some action. I've presented some data here to follow up, and we hope the council agrees and moves forward with the treatment on this. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
The subject that came up tonight from the folks in the audience about getting out of their driveways if there's a line of traffic sitting at the light will become extra impossible. People aren't courteous now. I don't know if a light's going to make them more courteous or not, but has that been studied as well, how the gridlock?
So part one of your question is, will it make people more courteous? I'm sorry, I don't think the signals are that smart.
I know.
But what they are designed to do is notice the queue length. So last week we talked about, the advanced sensors and traffic cameras that are being involved should we go with one of these, advanced technology systems. They're designed to recognize how long a queue is, and by design, if there's a driveway at, say, we'd be parking car number 4, it would recognize that and then go into a cycle where it would allow those cars to move out. I imagine we're speaking of Fordyce Road particularly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's in the design. So they can be designed and programmed in such a way to, move cars through, to set a queue at a maximum length or a minimum length. It'll be a maximum wait time, a minimum wait time. The goal is to keep traffic moving on Grove Street as much as possible. I think that's everybody's concerned. These new traffic signals, they can do that. They can attain very short queue times. I think last week, it added or last time I was here, it added about 4 seconds on average to the Grove Street.
So you're saying the system is smarter than the drivers?
Well, it
Well,
doesn't make, as you said, an error in judgment.
But more people stop for red lights than they do for stop signs. And stopping at a stop sign means a full stop, not a roll through. Most people roll through, and that's when accidents happen. So,
I would not disagree.
I agree. I would love to see this very smart system work for the people who live on Grove Street and make it safer. I've walked on Grove Street. It's not fun. It's not. It's scary.
Chuck, what are the thoughts, I know someone brought up here at council and also in the audience tonight too, of, it seems a lot of consensus is that the Hine Hill one does need a traffic light, just by the traffic data that you see. Seems that some people have concern of putting it on Fordyce. Some conjecture was tonight was do not put a stoplight there, but then have a right turn only. Have you guys thought about that at all? Is that part of the process when looking at opportunities?
My only concern with the right turn only is the amount of traffic that comes down that road wanting to go left. So now you're going to push that traffic to somewhere else. You're going to push that traffic over to the 67 and Grove intersection, or you're going to add additional traffic coming down Hine Hill, which will be safer, but now you're going to add queue length to there as well. So is it possible? Yes. We asked the engineering firm just to come up with the best possible situation, right?
Yeah.
And, the traffic signal warrant analysis, they did all that. They both warrant something. They both technically warrant a signal. Whether or not we go through with both intersections, that's up, for the council to decide, and, should funding come for that.
And I also know, Chuck, some of the, and we're gonna make sure that the public can see this on the website, as you brought this out tonight, is, I believe some of that says traffic tables as well could be options.
Speed tables, correct.
Yep.
So in the engineering report, there is a recommendation for speed tables, not just on Grove Street, but Hine Hill and Fordyce and Well. And for people that don't know, those would be similar to what's on Main Street and on the green there. It's like an elevated crosswalk designed to calm traffic. However, engineering-wise, we don't prefer or recommend that action due to the possibility for harm. Unless people are very familiar with the area, they don't know it's there. We could put up a million signs that tell you it's there, but, 9 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock in the morning. Oh, right, sorry. Yes, so that's the fear of something like that. As well as maintenance, ice, snow, water. It's a little bit more of a headache for the highway team as well. So that is an option, but it's not one that DPW recommends.
Does anybody have any?
Yes.
Katie?
Chuck, I've been following along with this, but my question is this. We have a lot of people who've mentioned this tonight, we had 2 others. For Grove Street, the speed and the congestion on Grove Street, so that it's difficult to get in and out of your driveway, their driveways. Will the sensor be able to help with that? In other words, what's going to happen on Grove? I understand you're putting it on Fordyce, but what's going to happen that could help the people who live there? And even to slow down the traffic, which is another thing, has nothing to do with getting out of their driveways. That's been a problem for a long, long time. People just speed along, or they can't because it's so congested. It's both ends of that spectrum. How would this affect that?
Speed is controlled by human nature. People are impatient, they don't want to slow down. Most people don't even know what the speed limit is on a road, I would say. These signals, traffic signals, are not a way to perform traffic calming. They're not designed to slow people down. They're designed to assign right of way, to allow people to pass, merge, come out safely. The 4-second delay max that's possible for this, I feel it would have a slowdown effect on probably the highest speed portion of this roadway, which would be that lower Grove with the average speed of around 48, is what the data's saying. So it has that potential to slow down traffic, but that's not what it's designed for, and I'm not suggesting it will do that.
No, I understand, but just wanted to know what kind of impact it could have, either plus or minus. But it should be a plus.
In my opinion, it would be a
Might be.
plus.
Go ahead, hand around, I understand. There's no way to know. No.
Any other questions? While we're still on the topic, the Westcog congestion.
Turn that over to Jack.
Yeah. One of the things I want to just address is Grove Street. Part of the issue with Grove Street is the law of unintended consequences. When they expanded Route 7, they put the Still River Drive in, you diverted some of the traffic. And I'm going to talk about this with a congestion study. I serve on the technical advisory committee for the congestion study for the town. We had a call on last week to talk about where they stand at this point. AECom is their contractor. They are the ones doing the study for the COG. The objective is to list the most congested locations in the West COG area, the 18 towns. They went through and they evaluated the data, looking at the 18-town region. Initially, what they've done is they've isolated and say we're only going to look at town roads, not state roads, which is true is true to some extent, and I'll explain that in just a minute. They went through and they initially identified 75 hotspots in the COG. From that, they developed heat maps and narrowed it down to 15 to 20 areas that they were concerned about. New Milford has 3 of the top 20. The number one, as far as their study goes, is the intersection of 67 and Grove Street. The second one for New Milford, and very close, it's not like it's a big separation here, is Bridge Street and Route 7. You probably knew those two. The third is Sullivan Road and Route 7. Those are the 3 that they've got as part of this.
Sullivan Road and Route 7?
Yeah.
There's no traffic light there if I'm mistaken.
Okay. So they've studied those. We got into quite a conversation during the conference call. And they asked my opinion of looking at 67 and Grove Street and Bridge Street and Route 7. My advice to them was not to look at them singularly. Look at them as a group. We've talked about Route 67 and Bridge Street several times. I've talked to the mayor and said, should we put a roundabout? Should we do something else there? The issue is, and you know this because you live here, is that, yeah, you can get through that intersection, but if you go north, you hit the light at the hospital. Worse, if you go around it and you go left, you go sort of toward the center of town, down Bridge Street, you have 2 more lights before you get to Route 7. So you need to look at that as a whole. If you try to solve the problem at one end or the other end, you're not looking at the problem. It's really a systematic problem in that area. I've been here now, this is going to my 6th summer, and I think the mayor, we've talked about it every year. We've gone down, we've stood there at 6 in the morning, counted cars, we've looked at it all different ways. You've got a center of town, much like center of Farmington, where you've got this road coming through a town which was designed many years ago with a green, and now you've got all this traffic. And it's not going to get, unfortunately, it's not going to get better. In fact, I had a call today, we were talking about Route 7, can we look at narrowing Route 7? Can we look at a way of making it slower? And one of my comments on the call was, yeah, you do that, what's going to happen is people are going to get a little frustrated with Route 7, so now we're going to have more people going down Grove Street to go and cut around the center of town. So these need to be looked at as system problems, not individually. So I'm hoping they take that. We should be getting a result of our conversations. They're supposed to send us a PowerPoint. I was hoping to have it for tonight. Once I get it, I'll pass it on to the mayor and you can share it, where we stand on this. Where we are is they're going to come up with some workshops, a list of deliverables, and develop a congestion countermeasure plan. Now they're going to develop that. It's going to be they're going to develop it. They didn't say they'd fund it. They just said they're going to develop it, and they'll be distributing this to the towns. I don't expect to see this for a while, but I do think that as we go forward, and I'll continue to talk to the committee, that we need to look at these things systematically and not in isolation. I think if you look at that, either one of those intersections by themselves, you're not solving the problem.
Well, you're absolutely right, Jeff. There's clearly a relationship between 67 Grove and Bridge. I mean, that, as you said, you stop one place and... so I just want to make sure I understood. You said that they covered 18 towns with
Yep.
these 75 hotspots. 15 to 20 of those were very bad.
We've moved forward to those 15.
Real hot,
Yeah.
okay. And New Milford was lucky enough to have 3 out of that?
Out of those top, yeah. We have more, but we just got lucky with the 3 to get them in the top
Oh, yeah?
20.
Huh.
These aren't the same spots for accidents.
No, this is different. This is traffic.
This is your
Traffic.
congestion,
Right.
yes,
Right,
right.
so that's just so we have, the public that's listening may be merging those 2 concepts together.
And I think that one of the things, while we talk about those spots and the 2 lights, you've also got the issue on Bridge Street's just a hot mess.
Yeah.
And because you've got people coming out Youngsville Road that can only turn left, they can't turn
Right.
right. So then, but you can't go up Housatonic because the bridge is too low. So you force that traffic to one of 2 things: either go back out and go out to Boardman, but you can't get through the
Right, trestle.
the trestle there. So then what you do? What are you going to do? We force you to go up Patriots Way, which is really a parking lot, and exit
Right.
there by the railroad track and the traffic light. So
Do they ever bring up the fact that lack of space to get around the people taking the left on Youngsfield? I look at it every day and I see there's no way to, because it's the bridge abutment, it's the guardrail, there's nothing.
Yeah, well, we looked at that as part of the riverfront process.
Yeah.
And that would take that road, it would move it. It
Yeah.
would take Youngsville to
But
move it.
before that, I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, before that, you can't go out there. I came over the bridge the other day, And unfortunately, a tandem was coming out, and they were obviously ignoring the sign because they went and to take a right.
Oh, yeah. And also, there's nothing painted there to show people that you maybe could move over a little more to make it easier for people to get by, but I guess that's not up to us, because that's a state road, right?
State road.
Yeah.
Real quick, Jack, kind of circling back to Grove Street as well. So if the council was to recommend, from your recommendations, to put 1 or 2 traffic lights there, I know there's been some conjecture of the cost of traffic lights. And we talked about it could be up to $600,000 for both of those. So would we be applying for a grant through LOTSIF to get those?
Yeah, we applied the last round, and we submitted. We had a short window, so we submitted, and I'll let Chuck go into detail. We didn't have quite all the information we needed. We have long since got all the information, so we are waiting for the next issuance of a LOTSIF grant, and then we will be applying again.
So if the town decides to do that, then we could apply for that.
Yeah, it wouldn't take us long now. We have all the information.
Okay, all right. Does anybody have any other questions? Because I think with the council's approval, we add this to the next town council agenda to decide whether we're going to do traffic lights or not, or 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Everybody agreeable with that? Okay.
Can I ask this, that
Yep.
we would also get the same kind of discussion and stuff that we got from Chuck on the Fordyce, that we get the same sort of breakout info for, you're talking about going up to Hine, right?
Yeah, it's in that study, it's both of them. It's
Right.
already in there.
Right, so maybe you could just edify us, give us the more details.
Yeah, I'd be happy to come back. That study, I believe, is already on our website. If not, I'll double check, but it should be uploaded to our website if anybody wants to read it. I believe
Okay.
everybody here was given a
If
copy.
it's on there, then that's good.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Okay. Next is, thank you, Jack. Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate it very much.
Mayor's comments.
What's this?
Aren't you next?
Mayor's comments, I think we blew by that, so I'll ask that I do that during economic development, right?
Would you like to do the, we have some gentlemen sitting out here for the Lanesville?
Yeah, so let's do Lanesville.
Lanesville? Okay, so item 13, item 13A, I would like to move that we take action to appropriate $5 million for the expansion and renovation of the Lanesville Fire Station, and authorize the issue of bonds and notes in the amount of $5 million to finance said appropriation.
We have a motion and a second, and this was unanimously approved at the last town council meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Next, Katie is setting the town meeting.
Yes, I'd like to move that we set a date, I suggest July 8th, 2024, for a town meeting concerning the Lanesville Fire Department expansion.
And the date is the 8th of July.
Yeah,
And
Yep.
location,
Be Town Hall,
E. Paul Martin.
time,
6:30.
Yeah, 6:30. Okay, so that's July 8th at 6:30, town meeting concerning the Lanesville Fire Department expansion.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everybody in attendance. Thank you.
Yep. Item, and you gonna stay and listen to everything? 13C, we have a report from the mayor on economic development.
If I could I just, before I do the economic
Whatever
development,
you
could I
like,
do very
Mayor.
quickly the mayor's comments, since we missed it?
Oh.
Be very quick.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yes. First, thank you to everyone for Memorial Day, the 2 parades. Thank you to Gaylordsville Fire Department for the parade in Gaylordsville. Thank you to our veterans for the New Milford one. We were able to get both of the Memorial Day parades in, which was great with the weather. Also, we had the duck race.
Yes, we
right,
did.
with the Rotary.
Yes, we did.
Well attended, so thank you to everyone with that. I know Greg talked a little bit about our municipal budget. It did pass. The results of it were, and actually it was a little higher in vote than we had the previous year, but the results were for affirmative yes to the town, 1,023, no was 742. On the educational side was 986 yes, 775 no. New Milford Police Department. And I want to thank the voter registrars and everyone that worked the polls from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you for all their hard work on that. New Milford Police Department statistics. First, the police department's going to do child safety seat checks at Kohl's this Friday from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. So if you do have a child safety seat or you need one, please go see the New Milford Police Department on Friday. Traffic statistics so far. Motor vehicle stops in the year 2023, this time in 2023, was 868. So far this year, to date, is 1,904. That's an increase of 1,036, or 83% increase. Motor vehicle accidents in the year 2023 was 342. 55 were in parking lots. In this year, year-to-date, is 319, of which 23 were in parking lots, which is a reduction in 6%. If you take a look at national statistics, accidents are way up. So even though we don't want to have one accident, we are seeing that this enforcement is helping to drive some lower accident statistics. So far this year, from January to today, we've had 1,908 traffic stops so far. Next, we continue as Memorial Day kind of kicks off our summer season here. We did have wet weather, a little cooler weather, but we did have our river and park patrols out and about, and they all said everything was well. Trash was very, very minimal at best, which was great. Also want to let the council know and those watching and in attendance that at Sullivan Farms, our Antique Farm Trail is now open. So you can go out and see, you can go out and see some pretty cool antique farm equipment and take a nice walk as well, and enjoy the farm. This Saturday playing at the bandstand is the Blue Yodels, starts at 10 a.m., ends at noon. And then have some quick congratulations first to our New Milford baseball 8U travel team for their second place finish in the Pomperog Memorial Day Tournament. Congratulations to the Jades 12U Nationals as they won the 2024 Fast Pitch Tournament of Champions. Congratulations to the New Milford Varsity Baseball, Ryan Gabinelli and Gianni Barbarino, first team All SWC. Congratulations. Congratulations to New Milford Varsity Softball, Sienna McNamara and Nia Plisco for their SWC All-Conference honors. And then we have from New Milford Varsity Softball, Elena Beatti and Hannah Bauer and Ava Kopp for making SWC All-Division. So great jobs for that. Want to congratulate the New Milford Varsity lacrosse team. They were ranked #1. They beat New Milford 15-3 to go to the championship game. They didn't happen to win that, but congratulations to them for their great season. And also want to thank the people from Faith Prep, so doing the Boss Academy, those wonderful students in the middle and high school. I was there for the Boss Academy presentation, so want to thank Principal Nicole Santora Joseph and founder Wayne Winsley. And this program, we also do it through our youth agency, provides a lot of leadership skills and social and emotional learning. It's a great curriculum, so congratulations. And then what's pretty cool is our second graders at Hill and Plain, they sent letters to the veterans that were going on the honor flight to Washington, D.C. And so each of those veterans got a great letter from our second grade students, and I was told it was very, very well received. Want to congratulate our newest Eagle Scout, Dan Verba. I was at the Court of Honor, and it's great to see just all the Eagle Scouts that we have in the last few years that have come out of New Milford. Absolutely amazing. And wanted to thank the Scoutmasters, doing a tremendous job. Henry Studwitcher, Donald Brieger, and Jim Ciaglo. And the parents, Tom and Christina Verba. as it was a great event that we had. Wanted to congratulate to Nick and Sorangeli, as I was able to do their wedding, and it was great to see young people continuing to get married and have, it's great to see. Want to welcome our 3 newest CERT members, Dave Jonker, Jacqueline Case, and Jonathan Honorando, as they are part of our CERT teams. I wanted to thank our Emergency Operations Director, Jim Furlow, for swearing him in. I want to thank again our New Milford Grad Party for putting up the wonderful banners and sponsors that are around our downtown, signifying and honoring our seniors. And also, they're the ones that put on the Grad Party, which is a safe event for all of our seniors. So thank you to them. Also want to thank United Way and the Rotary for the hygiene collection drive. Wanted to thank the postal workers for the Stamp Out Hunger Drive a couple of weeks ago, raised over 5,000 pounds of food, which is amazing. And also, I know Councilwoman Francis and I, we went to go see the planetarium that's at Sarah Noble School. Did everybody know we had a planetarium there? At Sarah
Did you know
Noble.
that? Well,
I didn't know that either. So I went in there, and man, is that a cool planetarium.
It certainly is.
It is awesome. And they're going to do some more work with that too, and maybe we can ask that the public could come in and enjoy that planetarium. It's great for the kids, for sure. And speaking with Dr. Parlato and Assistant Superintendent Hollander, there's only 50 planetariums in schools in the whole country, and we happen to be one of them. And then it goes down super low when we throw the observatory on there as well.
I suggested that maybe the council people, those of us that could get away during the daytime would like to see it. You'd be very impressed with it.
Dan Diella.
Take a little trip.
Yep, and Dan Diella, he's the enrichment teacher for K through 6, and he showed us the whole planetarium.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Okay. Going to economic development. So the employment statistics from April 2024. The state of Connecticut is at 3.5%. Here in New Milford, our labor force of 14,849. 14,429 are employed. 420 are unemployed, leaving New Milford's at 2.8%. And if you follow really economics, 2.8%, you're at full employment, just about. Though we want to make sure all those 420 unemployed that do want to get work again does, but that's a great number for New Milford. New business opening, congratulations to the opening of the Boardman Bridge Bushers. They had a very great grand opening for the weekend. Matter of fact, they put a rec out for, I saw on social media, for new employees to come and work, so already they're expanding, so that's great news. Our Rock the Block, the first one, which was this past Thursday, was a very big success. Had a bunch of people there. Restaurants were full. It's great to see families enjoyed it. Our ice cream, both locations, were doing tremendously well as the restaurants throughout the downtown. Also want to congratulate Jocelyn Arana for her grand opening of Gemma Nails and Spa, and that's located in One Executive Center. So if those that don't know where that is when you go past Stop and Shop, remember all the storefronts that were empty in those areas? This is the fourth one now that has been filled.
I noticed it's starting to fill up.
Yep, so starting to fill up. So that's good news. And her store hours are from 9:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Moving on, as we haven't met, Goat Days was an extreme success. They did a great job, and they raised over, Paul, how much? $9,500 donations that they gave to the Ostomy Foundation. I think it was the New Milford Food Bank and the New Milford Grad Party. So thank you to Rick and Lisa for just a great job, as they always do, and thank you to all the vendors. And I know speaking with all the, and the goats, speaking to all the food vendors, they were quite successful with the ventures as well. Also, the New Milford Film Commission is having a student film competition. You can check out the mayor's webpage as we're doing that. And also, kind of tying in, we're having a new movie that's actually going to be filming here in New Milford called Summer House. And Rodney McDowell, a pretty famous actor, is going to be acting in this. And we may be getting another film after that as well.
Roddy McDowell is going to be in
Yep,
this film?
he's in the film. I remember him
He's
from
good.
Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, yes, I did.
But
see
he was
the
in a
picture.
lot of, he was in a lot of films, but I
That
remember
was the
him.
one, yes, you would remember that.
And then lastly is our chess tournaments
Yes.
coming up, so we're very excited about that.
Saturday, right?
Yep, very, very excited about the chess tournament. And with that,
At the library?
at the library.
Okay,
And that's what I have for economic development.
okay. So, let's move back to item
Short-term
13. The only thing we have left would, well, you did your ED
Yep.
report. So, item 13D would be some more discussion on the short-term rental policy.
Randy?
At our last meeting, the mayor in my last meeting, the mayor asked me to determine, in my judgment, what would be the best course of action to take. We talked about an ordinance, but the mayor, I'm sorry. The mayor was thinking of a regulatory schematic, if you will. And I took a look at some of the 26 ordinances that are out there. What I've divined out of our discussion with the mayor was that you would consider, the town council would consider being the enforcement authority, obviously in conjunction with the police. This would require registration of the potential properties, which is an issue, but it's something you could regulate. Again, I don't know whether or not that would suffer a lawsuit or not, but the fact is I think that's a reasonable, if you will, requirement. It's not really a restraint.
What would you call the relationship again?
A registration?
The relationship between the town and,
The town council would be the administrating agency. The ordinance would require a registration of properties that would be available for rental, short-term
okay,
rental.
that's right, okay.
Yeah,
So, property owner would register.
right.
Okay.
You're authorized, that is, the town council is authorized to actually engage a professional to handle this, but I don't know that we have enough activity to justify a professional. If you do that, it's my opinion that you can charge a reasonable registration fee for that. Problem with that is enforcement. And if someone doesn't register and they go ahead and rent anyway, you're going to have to get into a situation such that it's a violation of an ordinance, and the police are going to have to enforce that. I spoke with wrong venue. I spoke with Chief Ceruto concerning this, and he understands that the best way to enforce this is not zoning. A cease and desist order does not even ripen until the rental's over.
Right.
And the fact is that we've all understood this. We've been in litigation for years on cases, and judges are not anxious to enforce things of this nature because they got other things to worry about. And secondly, you have to get these things scheduled in court. It's not effective to do it by zoning. That's my opinion, and that is essentially the essence of the discussions I've had with my colleagues, a number of my colleagues statewide.
How do you envision the registration by, people owning, just saying,
Yeah.
I do this occasionally, so I'm going to register?
Yeah, you publish it, the registration will be required. The police will have to cooperate, saying if they get a phone call and something's being occupied and they don't have a registration certificate, they can tell them to go, or it's disorderly conduct.
Right, and we could charge a registration fee to take care of the ancillary costs of personnel to
As long as
handle?
you have something that requires a payment, it's my opinion, you can charge a reasonable and rational, it's rational that you can charge a reasonable registration fee. I'm not talking about $1,000 a rental,
Right.
but you could perhaps charge per unit.
So if you were a person who was used to, say, when the Canterbury graduation comes, you have an extra mother-in-law apartment, no more mother-in-law, and, you know, so once a year, you, through the school, you rent that to people who come and stay for 3 or 4 days. That homeowner would register.
Right, right. You could also put a parameter on it. You know, if anything greater than 5 days would have to registration.
Right, so
for
that
short-term
the
rental.
larger homes that people rent out, say in the summer and the lake, which does encompass
Yeah.
more than a few days, that could be covered under this as well.
Sure. It's called a slot, if you will, a slot registration.
Was there some average time period you found?
I did not. They're all lumped in as 30 days or less,
Oh.
and
Oh.
short-term rentals, and hosted or non-hosted. If it's hosted, many towns that I've seen anyway, especially Massachusetts, if it's hosted, they don't even regulate it, because the owner's there,
Right,
and it's self-regulated.
but less than 30 days, that's really kind of excludes most of the people.
No, I would
that-
say a slot between 10 days or 5 days and 30 days would be required. You're not gonna really, unless you get a summer rental, you're not gonna really rent beyond 30 days.
No, most of
Parents
the,
rent a week, probably.
a lot of short-term rentals are just, say, a long weekend or
Mhm.
something, you know?
Well, you can do a slot, or you can just do any rental.
I see, so that's something that we would
You would
know,
discuss in
yeah,
determining
yeah.
how you want this ordinance to be drafted.
Did you find a town that did this?
No. No, I've talked to lawyers who talked about it.
Yeah,
And the problem is, we all have this, these are all experienced trial and municipal lawyers, and none of it's been tested,
right,
court tested.
right.
And you know, we know as well as anybody, when we're famous for not giving in court,
Yeah,
statewide with the lawyers.
right,
And you know that it's gonna be tested somehow. These rental agents have a lot of money.
Yeah,
You will need an acknowledgement by the registrant of parking requirements, that parking is gonna be strictly enforced, it will not impede or hinder traffic on any property that it's on, but we don't have the authority to enforce on private property. That's something that they're gonna have to
Right,
handle themselves. And when I talked to Chief Ceruto, he said, you know, make sure the council is aware that if there's a private property, Birch Groves, Millstone Ridge, Canada Lake Club, we can't enforce
Right.
on that.
but
And-
most of those private communities already, if people that live
Yeah.
there tell me, they have their own regulations that you don't do that.
Right, and just like condominiums, that's why condominiums,
Right.
they're so
So-
good, because they don't take this nonsense.
Just as a thought, I'm just gonna say this, so suppose the town put out on our website or somehow that, you know, attention property owners, if you are going to rent out space on your property, be advised that, the thing about the traffic, about the parking or whatever, something that was out there to alert people of that would be a first step.
Right.
I'm not saying that's what you should say, you're the attorney. But you know what I mean, as a first step to let people who do that realize that this could become something that they would have to register for.
Right.
You know, just so that, to know that we're looking at it. Now, the scofflaws are always gonna be the scofflaws, right?
Right.
So that's the minimum, I hope.
So let me ask you, this registration, would it be annually? Like, okay, I decide I Airbnb my house a couple of weeks a year.
I would say-
I would register it. This way it would identify, the police would know, hey, this is a rental, and if there was a call to cease and desist or evict or something, that they can come and enforce it.
Right.
That's the concept here.
Yes, it has to be cooperative with the police.
Right.
Because if it isn't, you're not gonna have enforcement.
Right.
And the police, don't forget, we can't tell them in an ordinance that they must issue a
Yes,
citation.
right.
Under Connecticut law, it's purely a discretionary act, whether they arrest or not.
But they
whether
could show up.
Oh, they certainly will.
So if
yeah.
Tom did that and he registers and the police department knows and somebody complains or whatever happens, they go there, they know that you've registered, so they can walk in, and if somebody's causing a ruckus, they can say stop, and
Right.
they'd go to the extent that they're allowed.
And they can make an arrest, as the chief and I talked
If
about.
it got to that,
The
right?
first thing they do is warn,
Yeah.
and then the officer has the discretion to make an arrest.
Well, that takes away the whole thing about the fact that the people are gone. or-
Precisely.
Yeah, or if you try to find the owner who lives in another state or whatever, that the the offenders are not around anymore.
Right. This is why I recommend against doing this through zoning.
Yeah.
Nothing against zoning, it's a wonderful, you have one of the best commissions around here. But I will tell you, you're not gonna be able to enforce it. Police enforcement is always more potent. And the officers with an ordinance, without this ordinance, they're gonna show up and they're gonna say, we don't have a noise ordinance, we can't do a thing.
Well, yes.
With this, they will have an ordinance that says disturbing the peace is like, you know it when you hear it.
Yes, right.
And they can have that authority. The beauty of this is that if you have a registration, an annual registration, you know, the police know and the town council knows by way of the mayor's office, they know what is fair game and what isn't. What's open to rental and what isn't.
And what happens then if the police get the call from somebody who isn't registered?
They get a ticket. In other words, they could be given a summons under the ordinance. It's a summons, it's only
Gotcha.
a summons, it's
Right.
a fine, for failure to comply with the ordinance.
The owner
Mayor-
or the people that are there at the time?
I would say the owner, because the owner's the one who's the lessor.
right.
The people can get cited for disorderly conduct. or
Could
for-
the town send, suppose you worked up some legal document that said, this is what we're doing, and we want you to be aware of it, we may put this in force, or maybe we do, and it were to be sent to every homeowner in town?
I would do it by way of the public hearing
Ever.
advertisement. When you do you could do it, you could send it to every
Yeah,
homeowner.
yeah,
in
no,
town.
obviously, the public would have a public hearing, but I'm saying to let it's one thing for us to talk about it here, as was brought up earlier, but in order to tell the whole community, to reach the people who are not here all year long, who are some of the people who do rent out their house, they're not gonna see it in the paper, they're not watching us, hi, if you are. But I think that, it's only fair to do our due diligence to get that word out to every person who's ever considered, because it would matter to everybody who takes somebody not a relative into their home, right?
And
But that's up to you.
Just if the council decides to go with this endeavor, the way this would be regulated, it's not outlawed. You can absolutely do it. It's just in this respect, you're letting the town know that this is what you're gonna be doing, so that in case there is an issue, that there is someone on record that the police could then contact, or if there was some kind of emergency, you have an emergency number that can get contacted, whether it be our first responders or whatnot. And it's something that's not regulated in a way where you're not allowed to do it, but you are letting the town know this is what you're going to be doing with your property. Because to me, I'm always about individual rights, right? But when does your individual right then cross-sector with your neighbor's individual right? When does that, and that's a fine line, right, that we all kind of have to work to.
But
Right.
making it,
But-
having a hearing and making it public
Absolutely.
knowledge
So
would
everybody
then,
can come-
you'd have no recourse. And I think the first step in just talking about it is to say that potentially we would ask you to register, or ask them to register, and I don't know about the fee part, but I think that could probably turn off some people,
But
but.
the reality here is, it's a service we're providing people that are renting their homes as potential income properties on these Airbnbs or short-term rentals. You're actually giving them a service to protect their home, because if there is something going on at their home,
Well-
now a neighbor can call, the police have the right to come in and do some enforcement to protect your property.
Yes, well, that's true.
I mean, we're not talking about the family that's coming up there with their 3 kids and maybe getting up early in the morning, throwing
Right,
water
right.
balloons.
I'm just
We're talking
thinking of
about people
all
who are
the-
really making noise and disrupting the neighborhood, and eventually hurting and destroying the property that they're renting.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, I find it as a positive thing
What
for them.
happens if someone purchases a home next door and they happen to be real party people and make a lot of noise? What happens now?
They
They
live there.
own the house. What happens
And
now?
I live there, and I have a party every Friday night, and you don't like it. That's what you mean? Like, I'm
Right,
there, I'm the
right,
homeowner
right,
and I'm there, but I
right.
like to
I
party.
mean, that would be
So-
anybody. So
Yeah,
are there
what-
consequences?
What
didn't
can
vote.
happen, police discretion, is we do not have a noise ordinance here.
Right.
So what can happen is, depending on the calls and the officer that does come, they can hit the person with the breach of peace.
Right.
But it's very subjective.
Right. Right. So, because you could be breaching the peace anywhere, not only your own home, my home, any home, yeah.
And while I understand that the registering might be a good thing because then it gives the police the ability to maybe do more, but doesn't it also open the door to the town getting into people's business more? Like their personal business more?
Well,
I'm just a little concerned.
no, I understand.
You know,
Right?
You're not looking at the revenues on the building, it's not like you're reaching into their finances, like how much are you
Not-
renting it for?
Not yet.
It's sort of
What
what
I'm
Well,
saying,
that's why people at
Airbnb
this
and
table,
Verbo
I don't think are gonna let anybody's liberties be
Right.
impinged unless
Right.
you vote different people in the next 20 years.
Well,
That
you
people are
have-
gonna be, that people are going to, their rights are gonna be impinged by
Look at
anything like that.
Airbnb and Verbo. They're two big concerns, businesses. They've been doing this for years. And in Europe, there's even more than we have here. So you have to give them information. And the reason they do that is because
Because
if
they have
you
a
go on their
reputation.
site, yes, right, and say, oh gee, I want to stay in this beautiful house because they've never told you that, well, there were 16 murders there and they have that, almost burned down, that kind of thing. So, that's how they work it. And that's why I was saying, but there are people who do just once in a while.
Right.
If you
So-
have the
The
space.
Airbnbs and the VRs, every one of those folks has multiple cameras on the house watching the entrances.
I know, I've
They-
stayed in
you know, we've all
Airbnbs.
stayed
I
in
know
them,
how
right?
they work.
They can open the door remotely, they
Right.
know what's going on. So when you offer that type of service to say, if you register this with the town, and the police call, the police are gonna call you and let you know. Those folks are gonna love it.
Or they don't, and.
They're gonna love that.
That's something else, so.
Okay, so what can we do for the people who are suffering right now? Is there anything we can do, because we have some community members that have brought this to light?
Yeah.
Right.
Is there anything that can be done for them
Randy, is there anything
now?
can be done right now?
Just because we don't have an ordinance yet,
Doesn't
doesn't mean that they can't be cited for creating a public disturbance.
Okay,
The fact is that is strictly police-oriented, that's
Right.
strictly state statute. With this, then the police will have a little more, if you will, oomph to go in there and issue a citation. But right now, when I talked to the chief, his words, he said, we don't need anything in the ordinance to tell us what to do. With existing law, we can
Right.
enforce with existing laws such as creating public disturbance, et cetera, in the discretion of the responding officer
Have you ever
after
had,
a call for
I had
service.
a neighbor that was causing enough noise for me to hear and they weren't next door to me.
Mayor?
I called police,
This
they
was
came to talk to
to
him.
stop or slow down, quote, Airbnb.
no.
But now we're talking about rental for the short term, medium, or long. So where is the difference? I have a cottage.
That's the time.
If I rent it for the weekend,
Right.
once a year, and I have a big party there, I could have a violation.
Yeah.
And
If
if
you
I'm
make a lot of
registered,
noise, but if you're quiet,
they're gonna find out real quick. So my point being is that
Like the Harvard party.
where are we setting this up? What are we trying to control?
That's my question for the town council.
That's my question sitting here right now.
It's really it's regulatory. It's not, if you will, the mayor had some points during our meeting that I explored. And one of them was, how do you stop this if it consistently happens? You can put a number, it could be an arbitrary number, 3 or 4. 3 or 4 complaints or calls for service to the police could end up revoking the registration.
right.
You see, that's why you need a registration, you need something to revoke. I don't know what the slippery slope is, and I talked to Katie about this. I don't know where, nobody does, and I know a lot of municipal lawyers. Nobody knows where this is gonna end up. But the fact is yes, we could say, if there's this ordinance, you have to register that, even if you rent it one weekend a year.
And we also had talked about owner on site.
Yeah,
So, as an
hosted versus
example with you,
non-hosted.
you live in the house, you have a little cottage next there, and when somebody comes and stays, you're in and out or wherever you are, but it's not as if you're in another state and you're not watching what happens. So if you didn't even register, I don't mean you wouldn't, but if you never did, no one would ever know because you've never had a problem.
That's why they talk hosted and not hosted.
Yeah, hosted is the word.
Yeah,
That's it.
because you're not gonna light Jimi Hendrix's guitar on fire if the landlord's there, really. You're not gonna play that tune. So,
place.
So which department in town
Remember that?
would handle the registrations?
Mayor's office.
Yeah, we
What?
probably
The
have to do it
mayor's
in our
office?
office, more than likely.
What else you gonna do over there?
Keep you busy.
Give them a clipboard, they fill it out.
I think.
Well,
And
if you send
collecting
out a-
money, I
If
mean,
you
we
send a
just-
notice, you could also send the form to say, if
But
you are
somebody
doing this,
needs to
this, and
do
this,
that.
please fill this out and return it to the mayor's office.
Somebody needs to do that, is
I
what I'm
would-
saying.
File it.
I would also think the
We need
first,
the ordinance.
yeah, you need an
Right,
ordinance
long ways
first
here,
to do that.
Need an ordinance. You need, and also the mayor wanted, in our discussion, some properties, as you know, are owned by LLCs and corporations.
Correct.
This registration would require the identity and street address, location
Right.
of a principal, a human being, individual of the owning
And
entity.
that, I think, is the best part of that, because it's the people who buy houses just to do that, because now they can, it's not like you're renting year-round. You don't know how to get a hold of the real offender, and that's the person who's the owner and isn't doing anything, doesn't let anybody know who they are, so that disturbing the peace can happen week or month after month when people come, because they don't care. They have a cleaner and they clean up, and the next people come in after. So I think that's probably a wise part of it. I don't think it
Fine.
hurts to have a registration.
Finally, and I don't know whether Airbnb or the other entities who do this would accept this, we would want to know who their agency is, and we want to be able to have contact with them concerning the particular rentals. Not that we would do that routinely, but it would be nice to know where their agency is, who their agency is.
They only do things, online. I mean, they know, and the renter, the user knows. I don't know how they'd feel about that.
I don't either, but nobody does. This is
I think if it didn't
this
take
is all
away.
pretty new ground.
If it took away from their income, they might not like it.
May I ask a question, since I was the initiator of this whole thing?
Okay.
Yeah, my issue was, where in town can people do this? We originally talked about single-family residential zones were not appropriate areas. Now it's like anyone in town can just register having short-term rental.
Single-family residential zones include residential rental.
Yeah.
That research has been done. And the fact is that the mayor wanted to call this a commercial operation. The problem is you run afoul and you get at war with your zoning regulations. In other words, you don't need an allowance
But
to
it's
rent.
not a listed use, if you look at the
It's,
list.
residential is a listed use. And if it's a rental residence, then it's fine. Then you're gonna have to register two-family homes, three-family, and things
Right.
of that nature. If you call that.
We don't want to.
No,
Right.
no.
And you
don't.
can't go, I met with the zoning enforcement officer on this.
Right.
And I spoke with another one, not related to this issue, just ancillary. He said the same thing. Our zoning enforcement officer said that is gonna be a real slippery slope, because
Right.
you're gonna have people saying that that's a two-family home, that's a commercial
That's right,
operation.
right.
And it's only allowed to be one zone. So,
And so the disturbance that happens, as happened with this.
What did happen? It's just strangers.
No, I'm saying, so when disturbances such as you had occur, as it stands right now,
call the police.
call the New Milford Police Department and tell them that this is happening. And that's what I would do, that's what I have done.
And a lot of this is education for the officers too, because they're oftentimes they show up and they say, listen, we don't have a noise ordinance, calm down, and there's nothing we can do. Well, now, if you have an ordinance, then the police show up and say, listen, you're creating a disturbance here, and you're violating an ordinance. So they've got something to go on, and they can exercise
Does it
their
have to be
discretion.
called a noise ordinance?
Oh, yeah, I don't even, yeah, only the DEP can approve a noise ordinance.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm asking.
Which we do not want to do.
Yeah, no, we don't, no, yeah.
So does this, on these two-family homes, I buy a house, have two doors, two-family, am I commercial and don't have to register? Or am I gonna be these people live there for years?
No, that's not a registration, that's not a short-term rental.
No.
So what's the short term?
Less than 30 days.
That's what.
Now, that's what the consensus is among the lawyers I talked to, including me. I thought that was a good number.
Yeah,
That
We
makes
could,
sense.
we could even shorten it to 7-day rentals.
right.
Which is what the majority of the short-term rentals that do this do it, isn't like a 7-day
I can
increment.
see us.
Yeah.
And finally, the mayor,
To that.
the mayor suggested that complaints can be published. You can do that, and it's not defamatory. So if you want to put it on social media or such, that 111 Williams Drive has had multiple calls for police service.
And a person can come into our town hall and to our assessor's office and with an address and ask, who is the owner of this property?
Right.
And you are able to get the information of who the owner is.
Right.
And if you then go to your phone and call that person and say, are you aware? And if they say, yeah, what about it? Then I guess it's up to you what you do. But it is available, it's public information.
And Katie, make a great point for the public that's watching. So, looking at regulating this, right? You're not asking for any private information because you can go to the field card and get the information.
Correct.
So that's public. One of the things I did talk to Randy about is if you have a person that's doing short-term rentals, and they're pretty much like, I don't care. I don't care if there's noise here. I don't care if this just keeps going on and on and on. Well, if you register, and let's say after 3 offenses during 6 months or a year, well, now you are now going to be it's going to be public notification that this particular residence has these type of offenses, and I guarantee you, as it was meant here at public participation, that will drop the scores for the sites to nothing, and no one will want to rent there anymore. So it behooves the owner of the property to say, if I want to keep this as, part of what I want to do is, I'm going to be careful vetting out who's going to rent here. They're not going to scream and yell, and they're not going to create all sorts of issues, because that's going to be a detriment to my property.
I know a lot of people that own these, and they are so fastidious to make sure that
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
their ratings are there, that nobody messes with their homes. These are major investments. They're their retirement funds.
Yeah.
And you give them one bad notice, and their traffic goes to zero. That is an economic burden on them dramatically.
One thing you might want to, and I led the discussion on this with a bunch of lawyers, as a matter of fact, is that this is going to have a salutary effect. The fact that you have an ordinance, as long as it's not, like we
Right.
talked about, Katie, an outright ban, that's
Right.
not going to work. But as long as you have something that shows that there's a regulatory schematic, if it works or not, that's going to have some effect, even on the renters.
That's right.
They're going to know that it's on the police radar, because the police in this ordinance will get notification of the registered, I sound like President Bush, registered property. They're going to know what properties have been registered. And the fact is that, Tom's right, the owners of these properties are not going to want that.
No, and I think it'd be nice, they could let people who are coming know, because you get a booklet whenever you stay in these places, they could just say, please be advised that this property is registered with the town of New Milford as a short-term rental property, and the police have the authority to come here if there's any
Right.
issues.
Right. So I'll draft whatever you want me to draft.
She want-
So,
Go ahead.
we're going to talk about this again, obviously. But I'm thinking, for the many and the most who do it without anybody knowing, this has to be as seamless as possible and not cost a lot of money.
Absolutely.
So however it's done, even if it's electronically, but then if that gives the police the authority then to do something about the people who are not taking this seriously or misbehaving or whatever, then that, to me, that sounds great. But it's got to be, most people are not a problem.
Right.
And I don't
100%
want to
agree
make
with
it another hoop to jump through.
I
I
agree.
think it should just be something that you get
An
in the
online
mail,
registration?
fill it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
No,
that.
have it electronically. even.
Let the really
Absolutely.
scofflaw people be fined or be whatever, but, I don't personally think that there's enough annoyance, as you say. However, having it could, for several reasons that you brought up tonight, Randy, could make it even better for the the person who wants to do it.
It's like the velvet glove, it's not a hammer.
Exactly, right.
But
I think for property owners, this is a benefit. This
And the
is
other-
service knowing
You're
that
right.
there is
Yes,
somebody
'cause-
else. If the neighbor who you're friends with calls the cops, you know somebody's coming to watch your house.
And
make
I
sure the
would
house
like
isn't getting
being able to
destroyed.
put a little notice in there with, don't forget to put the garbage in the red can, which is what they always write. Put the dishes in the dishwasher and start them when you
There's
leave.
a lot of instructions at those places.
But
I
you
know.
know, when you do this, you could give one, I think it was a brilliant idea, wasn't the first one. You could give out a fly sheet,
Yeah.
or you put it online. Here are the requirements under this.
Yes,
And the fact is that the police right now, and I would say to Ms. Hendrick, they can enforce parking right now
yes.
if they're blocking a driveway. I'm delivering a presentation. So the fact is that there's ways this can be enforced. The chief is happy to do it.
Yes, I
He's
know.
happy to instruct the officers at roll call, that we have existing laws, we have an ordinance, the town council's behind
Right.
us.
Because as it stands, am I correct, Randy, that there is really nothing that the town or the police can do if my neighbor is having a party and it's bothering me, or they're driving on the lawn? I have no way to do anything unless I go and find out who that person is
Right.
through the assessor's office, and I contact that person,
Right.
right? And
Now you
if
have it all
then
in
it
front of you.
continues, then if the police have to be called on a repeated amount of times, I would imagine that the police would probably suggest that you let them know that the police are coming. I mean, that's what I would do.
Precisely. And then the police have backup, the ordinance. You see,
Right.
I know police officers don't want to show up and say, listen, there's nothing I can do, there's no noise there. They want to solve the problem generally.
Yes.
Generally.
Absolutely.
So I think in
And
this
this-
case, it gives them something.
And Randy, and this, just for people watching, this in no way impedes anybody's
No.
property rights,
No.
anybody's actions.
And nor their ability to continue to have a peaceful rental vacation place if they so choose,
Right.
if they're doing it the way it's supposed to be done.
Right.
There's so many people who do it that we have you just don't even know,
Absolutely.
because they don't do anything wrong.
Mayor?
She looks upset that we're not hitting the right, so tell us.
So Randy, again, you cannot ban, right?
You can't, I
Short-term
don't
rentals.
recommend it.
But let's listen to the lady for a second.
That's a slippery slope.
Yes, ma'am.
My idea and thought, and I've talked to other attorneys in Connecticut and other municipalities and what they're doing, and I have spoken with my attorney about this as well and what's going on in other areas of Connecticut. And it seems to be more of a zoning thing, where there are certain uses allowed in certain zoning districts, and certain uses are not allowed in other zoning districts. Single-family residential district, if you look at the, which I've also gone through, the zoning code itself, it is not an allowable use.
It is
So
allowable use.
I
don't know who you talked to, but they're not.
I read the code.
The reality is that if it's a residential use, now multifamily, you're right, it has to be
I didn't say
multifamily,
multifamily, I said
But-
single-family residential zone.
is allowed, you're allowed to rent under our zoning regulations.
So
I wrote it.
I understand, and I just would ask you, ma'am, since you have done all this, have you had contact with the owner of the offending building?
It's up for sale, and they're advertising it as a
I heard that
lucrative
from you
Airbnb.
before, but I'm just curious, have you spoken to the,
It's up for sale. They
Again?
said they'll be gone. No, it's pending
oh,
closing.
I see.
Pending closing. But I would like to leave with both of you. I had mentioned, read some of this, but I got here late. This is
Yes,
from the
ma'am.
mayor's office,
Okay.
and this is for the town council.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the person that
you.
owns the building now has, that owned it when you had this issue, are there people still coming?
Last weekend there were, which I was surprised because they should be closing any day now. But they didn't
And
be.
were they quiet, or?
I don't want strangers in my backyard.
No, the question was, were they quiet, were they going to
I don't, no, I said it had nothing to do with more. It has to do
I know that. No, she just, it's her
Were they
from
voiced?
Elizabeth here. I didn't read it. You can read it. I don't. Okay, are we all done? So we'll continue
You need
this
10 acres.
discussion,
Be on the
right?
next meeting, Randy, if you
Yeah,
could kind of.
what would, you want me to continue with the outline? Because I want to
Yes.
draft anything until you tell me to draft
Yes.
something.
If you could continue with the outline.
Okay.
And then we'll continue with asking for public input.
Right.
And you do it here or via email. We'll, again, discuss it, kind of.
You may want to call ZEO Regan.
Well, I think she'll tell us.
bring her in.
She'll tell us that same thing she's told you. But I would also think, if you don't want to do it, I would do it. Because I've had contact with Airbnb, I've been using them for a long time. Because occasionally a host will suggest, if you are going there an occasional, more than one time, they'll suggest that, well, you know, we could do this rental outside of Airbnb and save us all some money, because they charge them, obviously, they charge the host, and you have to pay for a cleaner, et cetera, et cetera. And we've always said no, because we prefer the protection of being in a place that you know they're following the rules. But I would like to ask them, how often does this happen, and how would they feel if we did what you said and tried to mimic something that they had?
You know, I would guess, and I haven't talked to the Airbnb or VRBQ or anybody, any service, I would guess that they would welcome this.
Well, that's what I'd
Because
like
it's
to
going to
know.
parrot their regulations.
I think I might do that.
It's not going to avoid Ms. Hendrick's issue, the private
No.
property issue.
No.
Because you don't want a stranger in your backyard. But you can only restrict liberty so far.
Well-
You see what I mean?
Anybody, I don't know the people that live near me, they're strangers. But your problem is that they're being unreasonably noisy. Oh, they parked on your lawn.
Never said that.
Oh, I thought you did.
Watch your video replays.
Well-
What did you say the first night we talked about this? Your statement was, it's a business. It doesn't belong in a single-family residential zone.
If they're not
No, you just left
regulated.
it at that.
All right, you're going to get into a debate. I'm drafting the ordinance.
But
so you can have it.
I just don't see how we can help her, you know?
I'd like to call.
Is it adjournment?
Motion to adjourn, adjourned. Second from Bob, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
I know, sorry about that.
What?